This is going to work. Yes! Absolutely awesome. Welcome back. Today we're doing tailgate stuff. I got to work out how to get the rear panel to hinge down. So in the last video, I did a cut behind this bumper thinking that I could have the tailgate lower. I can't because of the bumper. I also said that I can push this out to cover the tires, which is then going to make it really difficult to get this bumper on. So maybe I try and contort my panel so it's a wider gap at the top, but at the lower half of it, it's still basically factory, because there isn't a lot in this bumper that I can shave out, but there is a little bit. I've got a cut across here that I'm going to need to patch up before I do any more cutting. Then go to the Jumbuck and look at how that tailgate mechanism's working, the hinge point and the locking mechanism, and then get that to work on this car. I think the first step is to cut along this corner, which is, oh no, my bumper, which is right here. And then maybe the pivot point is up higher, so when it pivots flat onto the bumper, which the clamp just let go. I think there's a lot of measuring, a lot of thinking, a lot of working out to be done. Once I've done that, I'll come back with the solution and how I'm going to get it all to work. Here we have the tailgate in the Jumbuck, and I think I'm going to use most of this mechanism because it's really simple. So we've got these lugs that are removable on both sides. So you can undo that, push that lug back to take the tailgate on and off. Now this bar, it's the same at either end of the tailgate. That bar goes all the way through as reinforcing, so I don't want to mess with that. With that being said, if I can use this point in the tailgate of the Jumbuck and then bring the pivot point where those lugs are in to meet it, then we can have the pivot point hidden behind this part of the tailgate, and then it won't impinge when I install the rear quarters. So I think that's kind of the plan. I need to pull that silver one off because this white one's in better condition. Take the silver one apart and work out where and how I'm going to install those lugs that can be removed. I've gotten the tailgate cover off to have a look inside. So I'm just trying to work out all of the things that are going to cause me a nightmare or a headache in the end. We've got the latches off of the chassis. They can move in and out. And if we have to, we can make a box that sits in here that then pulls this out. We've got the pivot points here, the blocks. We've got a fixed measurement from pivot point to pivot point on the tailgate, and I don't want to adjust this because this is a reinforcing bar. So I've got to get the blocks, get them into the correct spot, and then that will work. That's easy. I'm almost considering trying to get this tailgate, before I do anything else to it, functional in the E30 so it pivots up and down. And then I can cut across to the correct thickness and then reskin the E30 panel onto this. The next thing that I have to consider is the mechanism to open the tailgate. You've got the button here which pops the boot for the E30, and if we can get that functional as the handle, then that would be ideal. So this little bit that pivots in and out, that is pivoting this arm just here. So we need to get the button on press to pivot this bar right there, which shouldn't be too difficult, but there will definitely be some mechanism adjusting. The last part is the height. So from this angle where we're going to cut to the top is about 340. And if you go over to the Jumbuck, the overall height is about 470, and the latching mechanism is at 360. So the latching mechanism needs to be moved down just to be able to fit in. And ideally, we get that mechanism so far down that it then lines up with this button. This is going to take a bit. I think the first step is to fix that little cut down the bottom. Horrible. That's pretty ugly. Luckily, no one will ever see it, except me and you, of course. Don't tell anyone. Now that we've got that repaired, we need to work out where to cut. And you can see coming up, we want to cut just above this radius, which is about, let's say there. I'll mark that all the way along, get some masking tape, and then just cut that all the way across. I will have to cut one more piece after I do that. This panel right here. Tailgate panel. Ta-da! Okay, this is the panel we've just cut off. All we need to do is be able to pivot that flat. Simple enough. The plan is, if I can get this tailgate sitting here and then pivoting, then I can strip this one back and put the E30 skin over the top. Let's do that. How ridiculous does that look? Nutty, but not quite acceptable. The issue I'm having is I have to add this 90mm tubing in to then bring the tailgate above the bumper bar line, but let me just unlock it. When it's folded down, it still adds extra thickness. And as far as I'm concerned, a ute should have flat bed into a flat tailgate. I went out to U-Pull-It and bought a Ford Transit door, thinking that this hinge might be the savior, and instead of having the tailgate open down, it would open around. Alrighty, change of plans again, and I just want to run you through what's happened and what's gone on in my brain. Now, I was going to have the swing out door. It's less convenient, not that this is going to be a convenient car at all, and it's not, to me it doesn't feel like a ute. It's got to have a tailgate, and the parameters that I'm kind of working on are two main ones. You have to be able to sit on the tailgate, so it's got to be able to take the weight of 2 people, and maybe 2 drinks, little cup holders in the tailgate, so you can have a little sit down on there, a little tailgate picnic. And the tailgate needs to be the same level as the bed. So the tailgate can't be up higher than what the bed's going to be. I can't have the bed any lower because this is where the body kit sits, and I don't really want to have it up too much higher, as it will look wonky. It won't look right if the bed's only, say, 100 to 200 mil deep. So I want to use this as the height. It then comes into question how the tailgate pivots, and I'm going to run through a couple of different prototypes and how my brain came to the conclusion that I have. I cut out a template the size of the bumper, so I know how far I need to clear. This is just rough, but it's pretty close. I've made a little template here. The slot is the pivot point, and this little bracket would get mounted to the chassis. So we can slide a rivet just to show. This edge would be the face of the tailgate. To get that to work, we need to move the bracket back so we're in line, and we want it to somehow come up and pivot past the bumper. Now, this one kind of got me thinking, yeah, this will work, but I need to get the arc right, and I need to get the cutout correct. And this one wasn't big enough. I made it a little bit bigger just to see what was going on, see if I could work it out a little bit more, and each prototype just got a little bit closer to the final product. A lot of these templates got cut up to make the next template. Show you probably 4, but there was probably 8 to 10. So this one comes up and then pivots down. Now, we want the face to be lower than the tailgate, so then the thickness of the tailgate is still flat with the floor of the bed. This one is still on an angle, didn't have quite enough movement, so I thought, you know what, let's try again. Started to work out that I need to indicate the bottom of the tailgate to work out how much clearance I needed, because I need this to sit flat on the bottom and I need it to come up and out. As you can see, there's not enough clearance there to either get it flat or to get it past the bumper. I then tried to modify the height of the bracket that was mounted to the chassis to see if there was any difference. If you have the pivot point up higher, how does that change the interaction of the bracket? And you can get it flatter sooner, so it's then parallel or running in line with the bed. I then sat around for a little while and did just scrolling, tried to clear my brain and thought, you know what, I'm probably going about this wrong. I'm trying to design something when I don't completely understand it. I went back to the original template, clamped it, put my pencil through the pivot point, and then just dragged a piece of cardboard up where I needed it to go and where I needed it to end. And I came up with this. We've got the tailgate nice and flush down the bottom. This is the face. It can come up, pivot, and sit parallel to the bed. There will be another pivot point over here that will bend like in a normal kind of tailgate. I'll see if I can get a picture of that. Sweet. That will then hold it and give it some kind of rigidity. And after I drew this, I kind of started to understand what it is I was trying to get to. This is only the prototype because I don't know how thick the tailgate is actually going to be. But if I make the tailgate thinner, this line would come down. And then I just do 2 quarter radius up, meet in the middle, quarter radius down. So this was the prototype that kind of got me to the point where I thought, yep, okay, we can just have a normal tailgate, still have the strength to sit on, have a drink, eat a sandwich, still have it level with the bed, and keep this as the bed height. Now that I've got all of this sorted, I think my next step is to build this frame that's going to go inside the tub, because then I don't need to clamp things down. The weight of this, I can then sort out the tailgate so it will be a functional tailgate. Bit of a word dump. Let's now make the internal frame for the bed, and then we can sort out the tailgate. Sick. This is cool. Nice. And there is the foundation for the bed. I think with the foundation now set, I can start working on the S hinge, or as I am going to coin it, the Shinge. Sounds terrible. I love it. I do have some bad news. Now, I can't afford to sustain myself any longer just doing this full time, so I am going to have to get a part-time job, which means I'm not going to have as much time on the car, which is a shame, but I'll just keep plugging away, keep knocking out videos as often as I can, and we'll get this car finished and looking sick. I can't do it any longer. I've got a mortgage to pay and I've got to eat, and I do really enjoy eating, so it's a shame, but let's get on with the Shinge and get this tailgate flap working. Now I'm over here. I've had the weekend to think about what's going on with it. That corner is sitting up 10 mil high. Now, this isn't the perfect foundation to be getting everything nice and flat. I'm gonna have to take this bed or frame out, see how wonky it's sitting, and then adjust it and get it sitting nice. Hopefully I didn't make it too tight. So I'll take it out, put it on some flat ground. I found the flattest concrete I can, I think. You can see there is a little bit more of a gap on that left-hand side. That's the driver's side that's sitting up 10 mil. 10 mil is probably a little too much. If it was, say, 3 or 4 mil, I think I can get away with that. I'll sort this out and then we'll put it back in the car. I think that just fell into place. Nice. 23 and a half. 23 and a half. I'm gonna say that's acceptable. There is a high point by the towers, but it's not that much. So now I can go back to the S hinge, try and get the S hinge working with the tailgate. I think if I can get that working, then we're good. We're set. Let's do that. We may need to change this slightly. So it comes down to how far away this end of the slot is to this end. If we need this to be a little bit longer, just to clear the bumper a little bit more, depending on the thickness of the tailgate, we may need this one to come up a little bit higher. So then this end sits a little bit lower and we can get the back of the tailgate to sit flat with the height of the bed. Please let this work. Okay, I've done these bolts up tight so I could weld it into position. It is very flimsy. It is just holding on, but I just want to prove the concept works. This is the first time I've done this. So, oh my God, it's gonna fucking work. Oh, okay. Yes! Okay, now I can weld in some stops on the back here so that when it comes up, there is a stop right there. Okay, so it comes down to there's just no rigidity to it. I mean, that works. It works. Concept is proven. Now I need to strip the skin off of the Jumbuck tailgate and then get this skin fitted. We got a fucking tailgate. Yes! Success! Here's the cut up Jumbuck tub and we're gonna get a little bit of a win. The whole thing is just panel bonded together. So the sides fold and then panel bonded. The bottom is spot welded, but I think we want to keep all of this radius. So that means I'm going to cut all the way across. I've got a mark just here. I think I'm going to need to come down further, but instead of cutting straight up to my mark, I'll cut that line, peel the skin off, then I can get the E30 skin and just see how it's sitting on there, see how it wants to fit, and then I can cut further and further. The other thing to worry about again is this is pretty flat, where the E30 one has a bit of a radius on there. So we've got to work that out, but I mean, it's kind of really starting to come together. So to honor all of the Jumbucks that have given their life for this car, I'm going to be giving away this set of Jumbuck taillights. I know how hard these are to find. Stick around for more information on how to be in the running to win these. E30 skin Jumbuck tailgate. Going to need to clean out a lot of this. so we can fit the tail light in both sides, and then start removing some of the height on all of these supports. We don't want to get rid of all of the support, but we want to get rid of the thickness. This is going to work. Yes! Basically decked it. I did a little bit of a boo-boo here where I kind of sunk a little too deep, but I mean, whatever. That should go in there. We need to get the bottom of this basically in line with the bottom, and then we use the excess material from the Jumbuck tailgate to make up that little bit of a gap, and then just butt weld them together. It's going to be a really long weld. It just has to be done in this instance. I'll just make sure I keep it cool. I always do though. And we've got a tailgate. Well, we don't have a tailgate. We've got the idea of a tailgate, the concept of a tailgate. We've got the boot from the E30 that I think is the next spot that we have to cut up. Nice. Okay, so now that we've got this piece, I'm not going to need any of the latch or any of the bump stops. This badge is a dud, going to be replaced anyway. So I'll strip this back so it's just the boot. I don't even know what you'd call this anymore. Thing. And then we'll dummy fit it onto the tailgate we've got. Okay, I've worked out, I've got these little bits of 5mm plate. I've packed it out with the cardboard, but there's too big of a gap to be able to weld from one panel to the other. So if I slide these little bits of 5mm plate, I should be able to attack each panel to that little plate, and then that will hold it together. And there we have it. Oh, let's zoom out. Oh, no, out, not in. And there we have it. Tacked together in multiple spots, so it'll hold together while I'm messing around with it. When it comes to building the final unit, I think what I'll do is I'll get a 5x15, 5x20, shove it in the gap, and then weld the entire way along both pieces. I have done a bunch of back and forth test fitting, cutting, you guessed it, some test fitting went after that. And I think we're at a point where it kind of looks like a tailgate, which I mean, I would hope it is. So I've cut down the Jumbuck tailgate in all of the spots it needs to be cut down. I've cut out what I think is enough for the E30 tail lights, but I need to get a set of them out to double check. It's really starting to look like a tailgate now. Next things that we have to think about is tail lights. And I think given that when you look at an E30 tail light, and I've seen a couple of tailgates done on E30s where they've split down here where the indicator is, which then means I can use the edge of the boot as the edge of the tailgate, and the fact that I've cut this panel short means that I can get rid of that, and it's not an issue. We then cut across down here, and we have the indicator in the chassis still, which is sick. It also means that this cut that I've done here, which it looks like I've cut it short, but if the indicator isn't attached to the tailgate, there's plenty of thickness still behind the tail light to lower the whole E30 panel down a little bit, which then means that that panel isn't cut short. I just need to get it closer to it. Then in turn means the tailgate will be a little bit thinner. I currently have an issue with how thick this is. That doesn't look like a tailgate thickness. It looks odd. So I'll take the tail lights out. I'll probably cut these bad boys up. I've got one side where I can leave the indicator as the good side, and then on this other side, the indicator's a dud, so I'll leave the brake lights and tail lights as the good side. So I'll cut those bad boys up now. Cool. So you can see this is the side that I wanted to keep. There we have a E30 Ute tail light. That works really well. I sanded it back to get rid of as much of the orange on this side, cut across, and I can now cut this bit out, which is good. It means I didn't make a mistake. That's starting to look like a serious E30 tailgate. From here, now we'll attach this to the back of the Jumbuck tailgate, and then we need to work out the structural side of attaching the whole tailgate to the hinges, and then we can have an actual look at a fully functioning E30 tailgate. That sounds ridiculous, but I can't wait to try it. Let's do it. Yes! Now we need to attach the hinge mechanism to this tailgate with a certain amount of strength so it doesn't just fall apart. Made some little 50 by 50 angle templates. So one can sit there, one can sit there. It clears the light. I can weld it to the Jumbuck frame in the corner and then still have the hinge attach on the inside. Once I templated it, I jumped ahead and just made it. This bad boy is gonna sit in here. I can get a good beater weld all the way around it, and then that should be solid. So I'll tack these in. Then I'm gonna have to remove the bracket off of the chassis because it's not in the right spot. Well, it could be, but I don't know yet. Maybe I'll test that before I cut them off, just to make sure. We have a tailgate, a functioning, flat tailgate. There may be some adjustment that needs to be done, but I mean, how sick is that? Very, if you weren't sure. Sturdy as, bro. These are now attached. The Shinge, the slide part of the hinge, we have what hopefully will be a functioning tailgate. Because I've brought in the slide part of the hinge closer, you can see these little marks here, and then on the other side here, that is where the slide bit is going to go in when the tailgate is closed. So I'm going to get a 13mm drill bit, drill a couple of holes, air saw it from one to the other. Then we've got our slots. Then the bracket will be able to be welded on, and we'll have the nut on the inside so we can undo the tailgate from the inside. All right, we are so close to a functioning tailgate. I can almost taste it. Let's drill some holes. Halfway there. I still need to have this slot come through, and I want it to be fairly accurate. So I'm gonna have to do some measuring around and then drilling from underneath. I won't bore you with that. No, I won't do that either. I've cut some big old slots, both sides, and I've had to cut a little bit of, I left that on there. I've had to cut a little bit of a angle on there. Again, just prototypes. I can make them look pretty on the next one. This now should sit. So let's put you on the tripod so you get a good view. I haven't test fitted this yet. Well, I have when it didn't fit. This time, it should fit. It still needs more. Oh. This time, it's gonna work. I promise. Yes! Look! How fucking cool is that? Okay. Calm down. Now all I need to do is bolt these brackets to the side. The tailgate's working. Taste it. I can almost taste it. Brackets. So, this bad boy is gonna go right there. I've got to cut a little bit off of this just because I don't want a big old spike sticking out the side of my gear. Yeah, okay. I've finished it. Mark that one. Now mark the other one. I'm going to do 2 more cuts and then slightly modify the slot. The slots aren't high enough, so I'm just going to need to die grind them out. Then I can weld these on and then we can watch in amazement. Where'd my lid go? Ah, my lid. So to be in the running for these 2 bad boys, you need to subscribe to this page, of course, chuck us a like on this video, be a member of the Proton Jumbuck Owners Australia Facebook page. I'll leave a link in the bottom of the video, and thank you again to Philip for allowing me to give these away on his page. If you're not big on E30s, but you are big on Jumbucks, I want you to know that the project immediately after this one is going to be a Jumbuck. Stick around for that because I'm really looking forward to that project as well. Cheers. This is going to work. How sick is that? In this position, I can get the final dimensions for the Shinge, which means we can have it sitting at the right height and come out past the bumper, which is absolutely awesome. It's got a good weight, good feel to it. It feels like a goddamn tailgate. There are still some kinks to work out. Having the arms guided in so it's not, you don't have to fumble around with it. It's a tailgate.
Hit the like button, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you on the flip side.